Okay, welcome back everybody to the My Generation podcast, and on today's episode we're talking once again about the filmmaking process. We are talking to filmmaker Owen Lawes from Hangdog Films about the creation of some of his film projects, taking a behind the scenes look at what it's like to make films off your own back. So I wanted to bring Owen into the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problems. How are you doing today?
Yes, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good. It's been a while since I've seen you.
It has. It's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Feels like, it's almost over a year now. So, it was, a year ago I was apart from you guys.
Yeah, and you were at university, and then you left to go off on your own way and make your own films.
I did, yes.
And we're here today to discuss Owen's adventures over the past year. So can you give us an idea of what projects you've been working on?
Well, I think, over the sort of time I, had, took a step back and thought, what could I do that's going to work for me? I started sort of writing some ideas that I've, spitballing quite a while ago. Re-looked at some of the scripts that you write as a kid when you sort of practice and stuff like that. But there was always one that really came back to me, which was Oddity, which is just this whole paradox sort of short film. I wouldn't say it's like more of a narrative, more of like a, should we say, experimental kind of piece of work. More just a thing to sort of test my knowledge of filmmaking and put it together. If it came out, good, then I've got a good film on my hands. But it was really just a test because I knew I wanted to start going down that route of now I've separated from uni. I've got to start doing it off my back as a hobby. Obviously, jumping straight back into full-time work as well. It's a little bit harder to get the time to do this. But it was quite a difficult process, but eventually I came to some ideas that I liked, found the time, managed to complete one of them so far. Moving on to a couple others soon.
Nice. And what was it like balancing work and that? Because I imagine there's a lot of people out there who want to do filmmaking as a hobby and make their own films like you. How'd you do it?
I think at the end of it, you kind of got to. For me, I work almost 38 hours a week, so it's virtually impossible for me to find time to perhaps come back home and start working on it. But you kind of got, with the time you've got left from that, you've just got to push for what you really want to do, because when an idea comes about, a spark lights and you have that fire. That doesn't last forever. So whilst you have that, hold it and make something from it, because that'll be the time you sort of shine most. I think, that's what I did. Is every time I had a lot of couch time, sort of like thinking time, I call it, at work, where I just walk around in circles and think, oh, how could I make this work in the film and stuff? So then when I came back from work, I could just write that up, type it in notes or anything, and then I can just sort of insert that into to work when it needs to, essentially. But again, difficult, but I think finding that extra time that you have, just do whatever you can. That's the main thing. Just making sure you're utilising that time as much as you can, essentially.
And you say you had that thinking time at work.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. So do you have like inspirations whilst you're on the job? You just have to get that down. And are they things that are inspiring you around you, or are they just thoughts that come out of nowhere?
Sometimes it's thoughts come out of nowhere. I always carry like a small notebook just in case, because it's if you sit at a coffee shop, sometimes people watching, the curiosity, sort of brings you out into like a stretch, or where they're going, what they're doing, kind of thing. It's that sort of thing at work as well. I work in a retail job, so it's very customer based. Sometimes it's things people say, sometimes it's things that people do, or things that I see. Or again, it's my mind's just going crazy and it'll come up with something. I'm like, oh, okay, gotta write that down. So, always having a notebook on hand is really ideal, because without it, I don't know, I wouldn't have had anything to keep, as I said, at the end of the day, to then write down, put together.
Yeah, so you are an ideas man.
Yeah, I could say that, yeah.
And so you write your own scripts and direct them, I assume.
Yes, yeah.
And have you ever sort of been in part of like a sort of creating process, or is it usually write, direct, and then you sort of build a team around you?
I normally write and direct the ideas myself. When it comes to team, it's normally I've got a cinematographer who is currently part of his own sort of company, but through contacts known to know him, and he's very intrigued with working with a lot of like narrative films. So it's good to have someone talented like that on board. So I mean, normally what would happen is if we have any idea, I mean, me or my director, co-founder of Hangdog, friend, if we come up with an idea, we normally just send it to him, see what he thinks, and sort of go from there, kind of thing.
Yeah. So that initial circle was quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's the three of you really. Are there anyone else involved in the process?
Yeah. I say. I mean, with Hangdog itself, it's not really bound by team. We've not got like. I mean, there's the two of us who came together, created Hangdog. But when it comes to team, we want to work with new people, different people from all over the world, new talents and everything. So we can like kind of meet new people in a way, but like by doing that also creating new things. I mean, that to me, that's a satisfying thing to me.
Yeah,
is to create new things with new people. It's creating those new relationships that later on, whatever happens down the line, you can go, I might need some help from you. We worked on this thing before. How about we work on something together? It's kind of making the connections and the relationships is what Hangdog's more about. And then just creating something we can all be proud of from that. That's the idea.
Film is such a medium based on context as well, isn't it? I mean, we were working on an audio drama Once Said. It'll be out on the channel, so you can find that. And we worked with an incredible musician, Rando Stipicic, and he worked on the music for that project. And I thought, that's so good. I just have to get him involved for the university projects we're making, because this is just someone I have to work with again. And some of the talented actors on that will definitely appear in more of my work. And you get to work with them that one time, and then you're like, well, they have to be involved in so much more. You said you've been working on Oddity.
Yes.
Could you sort of start to go into what the process of putting that together was like, sort of from the ground up? Where did you start?
Wow. I started let's take this quite a few years back, at college. We had to make a single camera narrative short, and essentially I wrote an original idea, and I wasn't too happy with it, so I thought I'll bring it back to drawing board. And I watched a couple of short films online, and I thought, I like that, so I'll take those bits from there and sort of merge them together. And within 6 hours of just writing, I just came up with the idea of Oddity. I thought, I really like this, it really works for me. And from there, I mean, I made it once, more of a college project, something I shouldn't really, a bit embarrassed to show anyone at this point, but then I thought I quite like to go back and do it again.
Show the progression.
Absolutely, because I think one of the biggest problems is I just used the sort of camera I had at home, which is definitely what you should do. Like, if you have a camera, even your phone, just go out and make something. I mean, I felt pretty proud that I did that. Just went out and made it. The only thing is like, there's a thing when I watch it, as every artist would watch their own work or look at their own work and go, oh, I don't like that. I really don't like that. You kind of like nitpick it a little bit. So that's what I did, and I thought I definitely could improve it. I think I definitely can. So that's kind of what I went out and did. I just, 3 years later, came up with a new, fresher version, a little bit of a different, touch and twist to it. But yeah, that's how I came up with Oddity. And it was really, really good exercise for myself, to sort of like see how I've progressed over the years, but also to see like over what I've learned that at college, that like home studies, or the time I was at uni, just to see what I've learned and what I can put together with that.
Yeah, because I mean, university, it works for some people, but it's not for everyone.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and something like university, it's working quite well for me. Just my environment is quite great, but I imagine taking the step away from university was quite a big one for you.
Yes, yeah. It was definitely a hard decision for me to put into account that if this is what I'm going to do, but still want to do film, I'm going to have to find another way of doing it. I'm going to have to find another way that works best for me. But there, when I left uni, I didn't just jump straight into it. That wasn't going to be healthy for me whatsoever. So I gave it some sort of like thought time. I let myself settle in back to, should we say, normal life outside of uni. I eventually came round to it, and then my good friend Tom, who's my sort of business partner, he came to me and just said we should just make a film. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we kind of just, instead of coming up with something new, I was like, I've always wanted to redo Oddity, so I just brought the script, gave it to him, he showed his cinematographer, and then we just came together like that. It all happened very quick. Because I've had a bit of bad luck, like trying to get films to start. I have a good idea, I have the script, but it just, from there nothing really happens. It's all, fantasy from there.
Yeah, but at this point now you're starting to actually push down the blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the first one in the bag, it's all a case of now just keeping that momentum going. Because I'm a bit fearful of if I stop, that'll be, it takes a while to get back in. It's a bit like writing. I find the beginning the hardest part to write. I can write the middle and the end. The beginning is really difficult for me. So I feel like that's with anything. If it's trying to make a film, I always find the start really like stressful and really tricky to do. But like as soon as it starts going, the momentum's there, and that kind of just picks me up and takes me, and then just go from there.
Well, I know everyone's got. That's why I wanted to do this episode, because like I'm always fascinated because everyone's process seems a little bit different.
Yeah,
I mean, when it comes to writing, I find overarching plot really easy to write. So once I've picked an idea, knowing the beats, fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dialogue writing, I'm not great.
No.
Which is why a lot of my scripts, Once Said is one of the first things I've put out that isn't this, but I usually I'll be inspired by real words, so I'll record real people's dialogue, and then mix something out of that. That's what I did for The Day the Internet Stood Still for Screen South, and that's just a process that works for me.
I think that process as well works really well because you're hearing people's conversations in a natural environment. Because I have a problem with dialogue as well. I don't tend to write too much dialogue because when I read it back, it never sounds quite right. I mean, on the day when you get your actors say it, you can say to them, just say it how you would say it. Don't say it how it's read, because obviously sometimes it just doesn't work. They wouldn't say it like that, So it is quite nice that as an idea. I do it as well. Just record people's conversations because you just hear how naturally things are, and you can just sort of like just interpret that into your dialogue yourself. And
that's what you said earlier about like the people watching kind of stuff.
Yes, yeah.
You sort of pick up their like mannerisms and habits, which are so unique. And I mean, this one of my favourite dialogue writers is Noah Baumbach.
Okay.
He did Marriage Story.
Yes, yeah.
But I was a fan of his work before that, so Meyerowitz stories and earlier.
Yeah.
And there's just something, his way of observing people, because all of his dialogue feels real.
Yes.
In an interesting way. And he shoots the film to make it look kind of like real life. But then Oddity, what you've shot, next to no dialogue, correct?
Yes, absolutely no dialogue in it whatsoever. I tried to keep my writing like that, just so I can keep writing, essentially, because when it comes to dialogue, I can get writer's block quite quick, because it just doesn't sound right to me. I need something to sort of like sound right before I can move on. Instead of maybe coming back to it, I kind of work in that order. However, most of my scripts are non-linear, so I mean it's odd, complex, I should say.
Non-linear is great. We're working on it a little bit at the moment on the course, because we've been asked to like shoot something out of sequence, but it has to link, but not through time. And that was really fun for me, because I'm usually one of those directors, kind of Noah Baumbach, like where you just have one scene that follows the next. And actually like ripping things and putting them out of order is quite fun sometimes.
I mean, I've always wanted to do what Christopher Nolan did with Memento. Is he wrote the story, but then he cut up each individual event in that story, put it on the back of playing cards, and threw them down the stairs. And that is the order you see it in the film, because he's chucked it down the stairs. And I've always wanted to do that, because that would just be so interesting to see by chance what your film would look like, essentially, if you were just to throw it together in a non-linear order.
And that's very experimental, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very. It can be risky because some things won't, go together. But it's. I think Christopher Nolan's a massive risk taker. I admire the guy. Like, he's one of my idols. His writing is fantastic. Like, it's brilliant to read. I always I recently finished reading Dunkirk screenplay, and it's so straight to the point, but like the way he does it just flows.
Yeah.
But just it's not like in a linear order kind of thing. It's really great.
Writing that must be fascinating as well, because where do you sort of start with that? Once you realise you've got 3 timelines, do you write all one timeline first, or how do all the bits slot in?
Yeah, I haven't looked into it like massively, but I think from the sort of making documentary on the sort of Blu-ray that was released, the way he normally does it, he really like draws these diagrams out like 3 lines, and these would be the sort of storylines of these characters on this sort of event, and then he would see how he could interweave those together, and he's a mastermind. His mind is amazing. Really admire the guy. So
obviously you are trying to go on that journey of non-linearness. How does your script writing process go then?
What I do is, it's a bit like when you write a murder mystery.
I've done that.
Yeah, write backwards. I don't know if you do that, but I normally figure out what happens at the end and go back from there. I learnt that from Rian Johnson, who did Knives Out.
Yes.
It works best for me to figure out what's happening at the end, so we know what happens, and then sort of work back and sort of like see how you can hide stuff instead of trying to reveal stuff. In a way, writing forward, I find it better just to sort of like, we could put that there, and that could be a red herring. That I think with this non-linear structure, that works pretty much the same way. Perhaps knowing what happens first, and then see which way you can have it sort of displaced in the story.
You see, that was interesting, because for me, murder mysteries, I didn't work like that. The way I sort of learnt it was creating the intrigue early, and making the audience so intrigued that no matter what the ending is, as long as they don't feel cheated by who done it, then you've won, because they've had an experience that they've enjoyed, which is the intrigue, basically, for 90%.
It's a really like challenging thing to sort of like, one, not cheat the audience, but also stay like 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. That's the whole game with that sort of thing. I feel like it's the same sort of challenge with non-linear again. I would like to stay that many steps ahead, but just without causing that cheat to happen, essentially. That would be like a good goal, a good reaction if someone was to watch, one of my films.
Nice. And when, I assume Hangdog is going to be releasing lots of things, basically periodically soon.
Absolutely. We've finished Oddity. That was finished in October. We're still going through that at a sort of own pace at the moment, because we've got a lot of planning to do this year. I think we've got one coming up at the end of Feb. I'm not too sure, because the dates of the location aren't fully, in.
Well, this episode's coming out in early summer, so hopefully this should
hopefully
already
by
be out.
then you will see this film.
Well, luckily all of Hangdog's links will be in the description, so you can go over there.
Will do. This film, can't really talk much about this one because it's my friend's, and he's very like super secret about everything. But we are planning to film it like the end of Feb. But again, super secret. It's it'll be out by now. But but then I'm planning my next shoot for my next short film, which will hopefully be filmed in March or April.
Lovely.
So
you're always thinking quite far ahead, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. I do like to have some structure to what I'm doing in the year, like so I know when it comes to I've done that. Okay. Move on from that. What's next? I like to know what's happening. I think with Hangdog, having someone else to work with, be able to like work on these plans together. Sort of like take it in turns. That's what we're doing. Like we made Oddity, which I wrote, and now we're making his film, which he wrote, and then it will be me again. But then again, if there's any like other filmmakers that present us with a script and we think, oh yeah, we'll work with you, we're completely open to that.
Nice. And I was very interested by kit as well. I'm a big kit man at the minute. I want to know what cameras you're shooting on at the minute.
So kit wise, I mean, I myself just have a DSLR. That's how it all started. But for Oddity, I'll try going into as much specs as I can. But I'm not like a very highly knowledgeable cinematographer. But we used the RE Amira.
Okay.
So that we were really lucky with that. I mean, the guy is amazing. As I said, he's got his own production company, and his work is just phenomenal. Like, he is talented just from the get-go. So just to have him on board with the film, that was, mind blowing. I think it was a Cine lens, a Cine Prime lens. I think. I'm not too sure. Again. Technical specs, I'm not 100%, but it was lucky to have that sort of equipment on hand for that, and just sort of push that production value. But most of the time I use, if I'm out and about just filming stuff, I just use my DSLR, which is just a Sony A7.
Nice. And sound wise, I'm a big sound man.
Yes.
What gear were you using there?
Sound, we were using the Zoom H5, brilliant piece of kit. Very handy, just always at hand.
I mean, we're sat right next to the Zoom H6, which powers this podcast, so
it's very lovely to look at. It's. I think the Zoom range is absolutely brilliant when it comes to like sort of run and gun filmmaking.
Yeah, field work. It's perfect to have a H4 as well. It's the same thing. You just point it at anything and go.
Yeah, I mean, I have the H1, which isn't the best of the range. I mean, it's a lower end, but I really got it just for those moments where I thought I need to record something, and if it's someone's conversation or something like that in a cafe, it's pocket size, so it's having that at hand, just to capture those moments.
And it's light. I mean, I take the H4 for field work. I record some local bands as well, and I'll only ever use the H4 because the H6 is just a little bit too big and clunky for what I need for that.
Yeah.
But the whole range is great. And then the mics we use here, it's the Rode NT1A.
Oh yeah,
which are lovely,
so it is, yeah.
lovely microphones for podcasting. Not so good for narrative film.
No, probably not so much unless you're doing like a podcast narrative. That's like your audio drama.
In which case you can check out Once Said. I'll just throw to that. I'm mentioning it in like every podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be going back to Owen in just a moment, but we've got some more stuff on the show to go to. So I just want to firstly let everyone know that we are on SoundCloud. So if you're listening on YouTube, we're also over there. So if you want to listen to the podcast there, you can do so now. And next we're throwing to Sammy Bacon. He's our local Kent music enthusiast, and every week he brings us a 1-minute album recommendation to the show, so you've always got brand new music to listen to. And here is the album that Sammy recommends this week.
Hey there everybody, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm sure Max is smashing the podcast. I hope you're enjoying it. Here to give you a recommendation from one of the most exciting, invigorating, inventive, most interesting bands around, Squid, and their EP Town Centre. Squid have been knocking around for about 4 years, I think, and this past October 2019, they released their debut EP, Town Centre. Squid are part of this new wave of spiky, funky, post-punky, experimental rock bands that are forming all over the UK at the moment, like Black Midi, Black Country New Road, Roxy Girls, many more who I've forgotten off the top of my head, and the moment I finish recording this I'll think, oh my god, why didn't I mention them? But anyway, yeah, Squid play their very energetic and fun brand of post-punk, with plenty of musical variations. The EP opens with this ambient opener, which is very spacey and kind of lulls you to a false sense of security, I guess, before the cleaner comes in, which is a 7-minute epic about working just a very boring and thankless job. The drummer Ollie Judge said the song The Cleaner was inspired by the cleaner. He used to work at the record store that he worked in, and he said he never had any interaction with her, and he said it just seemed like I said, a very thankless job. And it's just a great song, 7 minutes long, great time. You also get Match Bet, which is inspired by another person who used to come to the record shop where Ollie Judge used to work. This man apparently had schizophrenia or manic depression or some form of illness, and apparently he was obsessed with betting, and that's what inspired the song Match Bet. Squid have cited influences such as Noi, but as well as modern bands such as BCUC and Duds. And they've described themselves as if the Coronation Street theme tune was played on flutes by angry children, which in a weird way kind of does sum up Squid, because I don't think you can sum them up by, I mean, I've said post-punk, but I don't really think that does them justice. They're so inventive, so unafraid to just make the music they want to make. You know, there's so much variation across the 4 tracks on Town Centre. They had success with earlier singles, which are great, such as The Dial and Houseplants. My first exposure to Squid was at End of the Road Festival 2019. They played, and they just put on such an invigorating live show. They really are worth going to see live. They're great. They're also on a label called Speedy Wonderground, which I just want to mention briefly. Speedy Wonderground, I think, has been around for 4 years and has some of the most invigorating, interesting, bold music in the underground scene. They've had people such as Black Midi, Kate Tempest, Tellyman, and Tree Boy and Ark, as well as Fontaine's, no, not Fontaine's DC, and yeah, Speedy Wonderground put out compilations every year, and they've done 4. Their newest one, the 4th one, has great bands on it like Black Midi, Black Country New Road, Squid. So Squid, the Town Centre, go check out Speedy Wonderground, get into all these bands. Yeah, that one was a bit rambly. I hope it was clear. See you next time.
And thank you for that, Sammy. We'll be tuning in with you once again next week on the My Generation podcast. Every Thursday, you'll get a brand new album recommendation from Sammy. Now, moving on to music, Vegasets are a 5-piece alt-rock band from Dover in Kent. They were formed at the end of 2016, and 4 friends decided to get back into music and play the songs they loved growing up. They're inspired by the Subways, Muse, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we're playing 2 of their songs here on the My Generation podcast.
want, take what you need, I'm letting go. Say what you want, pull on the lead, I need to breathe. Say what you want, take what you need, I'm letting go. Say what you want, take what you need, let me breathe.
And that's Vegasets. We'll be playing another one of their songs again at the end of the episode. It's been so great to feature so many local Kent musicians here on the podcast. But we're now going back to Owen to continue our conversation about the filmmaking process. We've just sort of been through camera gear. I want to slightly keep on that subject because I wanted to ask about tripods as well.
Okay.
Because I know that Oddity is, without any spoilers, set in like a more of a foresty landscape.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously that's not a very smooth landscape. So
No.
what's it like trying to adjust with tripods, movement? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, for most of the shoot, it was all handheld. We really went handheld with it for the moments we could. But obviously there was a couple of VFX shots that we had to put sticks out for. It was tricky. Obviously, because it's uneven landscape. I mean, this was landscape that didn't have footpaths, so it was like completely just natural sort of landscape, rough and terrain. Yeah, I mean, we got around it. We just set up like a lot of the on iPhone. You can get a level meter, I think it's called.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the correct name for it? A level meter?
Leveler, spirit level.
Spirit level. That's the one.
That's the
There we
one.
go.
Technical
yes,
terms here.
Yeah. So we just got those kind of just like level it out. But the tripod we were using, which I think was a Miller tripod. Again, technical specs aren't great with me, but
all of the technical specs will be in the description.
Yes,
every single one of them, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes. I think so. Yeah, so I think it was a Miller tripod, but it had the spirit level already on it. But like when it came to like when we couldn't perhaps use a tripod because the camera had to be so low to the ground, we normally just got some like logs, laid the camera against them just to sort of like
Amazing.
get that sort of like lower angle shot that we really needed to put on sticks for. But
And working with the terrain, really.
yes, really like sort of becoming one with nature.
Oh, it's a very poignant piece, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And that's proper guerrilla filmmaking then, isn't it?
It is,
really?
yeah.
And did you work with a sound designer as well, or sort of did you just mix up roles?
No, I mean, on this one, we didn't have anyone specifically for sound. We kind of just took it as, under the sort of, with, the whole short film, guerrilla filmmaking thing, people got to wear many hats.
Yeah.
So I spent quite a lot of time on the sound myself. So on the day sort of sound, we mostly, because of the non-dialogue, we mostly focused on like ambient and make sure we're getting that sort of Foley, and then we could come back later to any Foley we needed. Music wise is that's all my dad sorting that out.
Oh, amazing.
So he's does music. He started wanting to make sort of like cinematic music, and I was like, I'm making a short film, let's
it's
you
perfect.
want to make music, so so he's doing that side of things. I think it's nice to have that sort of like family connection into it as well. Someone you can just absolutely trust because they're in your family essentially.
See them every day.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
got to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And so was he already a musician anyway and just wanted to branch out, or was this new?
He did make music when he was a sort of my age, which is 20 by the way. But
if you were wondering.
I think yes. I think he was in his own little band, so he made music that way, but he never made soundtrack music. But he, over the years, watched sort of like masterclasses, like Hans Zimmer masterclass, Junkie XL on YouTube, and sort of learnt from there, and he just picked up the interest.
Hans Zimmer's amazing.
He is my absolute love. I love him so much. I've seen him live, and I'm going to see him again live as well.
Oh, wow.
He is brilliant. I mean, the music itself is better live than it is like listening on Spotify. It's just so powerful. Like, you can feel every emotion in every note. It's a beautiful piece of work.
Yeah. Well, what's he like? Like, what's it like being in that arena then?
I mean, it was overwhelming in a good way. Like, it was like, I mean, when he started playing, the first few pieces, which was like, Sherlock Holmes, Madagascar. Yeah, it was Madagascar. I think so. It was like, oh, I've heard, I know these themes. But then when he gets more towards the end of the concert, when he starts playing like Interstellar and Inception, you really like start to feel how much like passion these songs have in them. Like, he absolutely constructed these things from like his mind and just put so much love into it. And like, obviously the way they connect with the film as well. You're not watching the film at these concerts, but you just know the moment that they're like trying to tell as well, and it just works so well. It's amazing.
Well, you've got Interstellar and Inception, obviously both Nolan movies.
Yes.
So what's your favourite Nolan movie?
Oh,
the toughest question.
I think my favourite Nolan film is it's got to be Dark Knight. Okay,
an interesting choice.
Yeah. Not so non-linear.
No.
But it is a fantastic film. The writing, the direction, of course the acting as well is incredible. I think I watched it in cinemas when it came out, which I think I was a little bit too young for. But I mean, ever since, I just thought this film is a beautiful piece of work. Like, I couldn't even, know where to start if someone said, write me a Batman film. I don't know. And he just created the arc of the three films, the trilogy. But that one stands out the most.
It's the middle one, isn't it?
It's the middle one, yeah. It's speechless for it. Even to this day, I watch it again and go, I enjoyed that even more. It's a great film.
It's not quite traditional superhero film.
No, it's not. I think that's why I like it so much. Is it's so real. Like, a lot of these superhero films that are coming out now, they're not so like, they haven't got a realistic take on it. But this one did, and it's really like, when you study the characters as well. Like, should we say Harvey Dent? Like, the way the underlying tone of Two-Face is there. Like, he breaks through a couple of times, he screams through a couple. It's the complicated character like transitions that are there that like really intrigues me, and he just did it so well. Like, just see how someone could break, and it's amazing.
Oh, well, you can see these influences have probably been quite massive for you.
Yes, yeah.
In the things you've made.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take a bit of a handbrake turn and bring it back to the sort of university side for a moment, because I imagine when sort of you got, this is more for a local impact thing as well, because we like to talk about why and how people locally can get involved in this type of filmmaking. And I'm thinking there's sort of two ways obviously people can do this. They can either do what I'm doing and go through university, go through film, but obviously you're making all this off your own back, which is so inspirational as well.
Yeah.
That you've taken that leap and you're going on your own way, and both are very valid. But I wanted to ask, because I imagine if someone is listening to this and they're on the fence leading up to whether they want to go to university, because you've had both sides of the experience.
Yeah, okay.
When you were making that choice, what informed that stepping away was the right move for you?
I think, I mean, it's quite a tricky one. I mean, if there is someone listening, deciding whether they should go to uni or not, it's a difficult one, because I mean, I left really because I knew I still wanted to do it, but more personally, I knew I couldn't do it at uni. Like, I knew it just wasn't quite right for me. So I think, with knowing whether to go to uni or not, do go to open days, do everything you can to see what the uni's like, see what they do, talk to people, make sure it's the right decision for you. I mean, it's quite hard to really say that, because I thought it was for myself, not until I got there a year in, I was like, it's not working for me anymore. So it's a really tricky one, but I think uni is a fantastic source of knowledge. And I think if you do go to uni, that's brilliant. Like you learn so much there. You meet so many amazing people, like I did. You know, like I love everyone I left at uni. I feel so bad. You know, I miss everyone I used to spend every day with. I think it's I mean, for film especially, it's such a like a sort of people-based subject, and I think it's nice to have that team around. You know, you're spending every day with. And sort of like you can sort of talk about film together. I mean, you know, uni brings people together, I think. So I think if you're going to go to uni, definitely consider it. Definitely go speak to people about it. It's a good thing to do uni. But I know some people do also look at uni and go, you know, it's, you know, perhaps a little bit too, you know, overwhelming, or it can be. I mean, it really depends on the person, how they feel about it. But I think everyone should go for it if they feel like they want to.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice, because I thought you were a fascinating example with it, because you've got the both sides of the coin where, you're now out the other side making your own stuff, and it means, and there's no shame at all in going to uni for a year, figuring out it's not what you want to do.
Absolutely not. No, it happens all the time. I mean, when I was going through it, I thought I was the only one. You know, in those sort of situations, a lot of people do, but no, like loads of people do it. Uni is not for everyone, and sometimes you don't know that until you go yourself. It's the only way sometimes to find out, but there's no shame in it at all. I think anyone who does step back from it is a very brave move, and you shouldn't think any less of yourself. And if something's not working for you there, take a step back, you know, have a breather, and then just see where you can go from there. And, you know, there's not, because you left uni, no doors are closed. You know, you can make those doors reopen. There's plenty more for you on offer, even outside of uni.
And stepping into how you've set up your new life.
Yes.
What have you sort of put into place? You talked about the organisation of looking ahead to projects.
Yes.
How do you manage that on your own so that you can work around that full-time job?
I mean, I normally sort of, again, it's the case of like at work, I normally sort of plan things and I'll come back later and put it together. But I, you know, with the helpful use of like Google Docs and Google Sheets, I can make these sort of like plans and diaries and stuff, and I can share that with my co-workers and other people I'm working with. Exactly the same way you would with a call sheet and etc. like that. But it's nice to have a platform like Google that you can sort of even do Google Hangout, which is like a Skype call, and sort of like display what you're seeing on the screen and work through like that. It's nice to have a platform that allows you to do that.
Yeah, we're starting to use Google Docs to sort of share, because we're working on our sort of big, and do you know what, by the time this podcast's out, it will already be done, which is scary because we've only just started today. Oh, that feels weird. Planning the big sort of second semester film that we're making.
Are you on that now?
Yeah, we've just got to that. We've literally, today's lecture we had was the beginning, choosing the script we're going to do, putting together our teams. It all started today. And so literally we've just started putting together like all the locations, all the actors, and like booking them into slots as to when we're going to be doing our casting calls. And so we're using Google Docs to organise that, so everyone in the group can go in, see that document, see what's been done, what hasn't been done yet. So when a location's booked, our producer Harry Monday, big shout out to him, he'll put that in so everyone else in the group can see it.
I think that's the joys of Google, is you can just put anything and it's just live. It's always live. It just, you know, reloads itself and you can see what people have like edited and stuff and added on. It's really good, especially when you're working at, say, uni or as a small crew or big crew. It's good to have everyone connected in that way, which they can all like use the resource essentially.
Those workflows are just incredible. I mean, my dad's business is built around the exact same thing, but in magazine design. So it's like a live flat planning system. And as you're putting together the magazine and all the pages, it updates live. So everyone, if you're in, say, like Australia and you've put a page in, and then your co-worker who lives in England in your UK based office, you can see that the pages are swapping live. And that inspiration from what my dad's done is what I sort of now build around my filmmaking sort of workflow. I always find it interesting other people's workflow. I use Facebook chats like all the time as well, and like WhatsApp. It's great. Well, we're going to be going back to Owen to continue that discussion, but I want to tease some more topics that we've got coming up on the podcast. We've got Alex Durham. She's a freelance filmmaker based at Canterbury Christchurch. She's just, at the time of this recording, finishing her third year, and she's going to be talking about film, but from a more corporate freelancing background. So instead of making narrative like Owen is here, Alex works a lot with companies. She's building that into her career, and she's going to be talking about how she does that. Next, we've got another Alex relating to film. We've got Alex Merritt, who's going to be talking about some of his favourite unsung hero films. Hopefully some new films to recommend to you and bring you a new angle on those. Really excited to bring him on the show as well. And we've got Off Topic. They are a local Kent artist. We'll be featuring their music on the show in the build-up to having a chat with them about their music creating process. I know them well. I know them through the band Renegade, which we've had on the show before. Really great band, really similar vibes, but also a very unique sound themselves. Very excited to feature Off Topic. So we're going to go back to Owen in just a moment to wrap up this week's episode of the My Generation podcast, but there are future topics I'm still looking for people to talk about, and I want to keep this one in the film way. We're on a film episode. I'd like to talk to a sound designer. We've talked to people in so many different roles. We spoke to Charlie Hedges, who's a cinematographer and a good friend of yours.
Very good friend, yes.
Lovely, lovely guy. Great to have him on the show. We've spoken to directors like Owen, Alex, who's doing freelance film. We've spoken to people in every part of the process, but we haven't really spoken to a sound designer. So if sound is your thing, if you're into the world of sound, then I want to speak to you. If you're between the ages of 18 and 35 and you live in Kent, get in touch with the Facebook page at the My Generation podcast, where we also will be posting questions and featuring answers on future episodes of the show. Again, all links in the description. Now, Owen, to wrap up this week's episode of the show, I'd like to ask you a question I'd love to ask everyone on the show.
Okay.
What do you think you've learned from speaking about your filmmaking process here on today's episode of the podcast?
Good question. I think, speaking about how, you probably get it with you listening to everyone how they work. When it's said out aloud, you kind of realise, this does work for me, speaking out aloud about filmmaking processes really, shares the ideas of other people which they can steal or use or utilize, whatever like that. So I think hearing aloud my filmmaking process has really sort of zoned this is how I work best, and there's times in discussion where I go, actually I could probably tweak that a little bit, and things like that. I think talking about things is the best way to improve. Absolutely.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll have to get you back on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Once these films are all out and on Hangdog,
absolutely.
They might already be out, maybe.
Yes.
So,
fingers crossed, yeah. And then we can sort of go in depth about them and...
Yeah, but sort of analyse the releases that have been coming out and what's coming further down the line, because 2020 is the year, isn't it?
It is the year, yes.
Yeah, and we're saying this recording in February, but this episode comes out in June, so we're already halfway into...
Fingers crossed.
Halfway through the year. Oh, I'd have finished my second year by then. Oh, no.
It's crazy how fast time flies. Oh, my God, I can't even speak.
Yeah, how long has it been since I've seen you? It's been crazy.
It's been I left uni March 24th, 2019. So we're getting close to a year now. Yeah.
And with this episode coming out, it's going to be over a year already since you've left uni. I had this one. I had an episode with my friend George. That was for episode 20. We were talking about novel writing.
Yes.
Yeah. And he just got back off the plane from Luxembourg, and I hadn't seen him in nearly 2 years. And the first time was this, just sat doing a podcast. Yeah. It's well, this is interesting. It's been so long, and you can reflect over all that time, because it's been eventful for us both.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
I think pushing in the right direction, and hopefully some of Owen's very wise words have been able to help you in whatever filmmaking endeavours you've got. And can people get in touch with Hangdog if they've got any more questions?
Yes, so in order to get in touch with Hangdog, if you go to our Facebook page, which should be just Hangdog Films, Hangdog Films on Facebook, and on Instagram it's exactly the same thing, so at Hangdog Films again. Just send us a message if you need to contact us. Otherwise, it's at Owen Lawes for me on Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Owen.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Well, we're just going to be finishing up today's episode with a second song from Vegisets. Just to remind you, they're a 5-piece alt-rock band from Dover, Kent, founded at the end of 2016, where these 4 friends decided to get back into music and play the songs they loved growing up. You can find also Vegisets links in the description of this episode. And ending the My Generation podcast this week is Lose Sight. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll tune in with you next Thursday for the next episode of the podcast, but also every Sunday night I will now be doing personal solo episodes where I do film reviews, anecdotes and more, so you can tune in Sunday for the next one of those and next Thursday for the next guest on the My Generation podcast. Step